Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadarsham Tattvamasya Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalam Achalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namah. Going down to the Supreme Teacher, who is the all-pervading Supreme Being. So today is, what do you call that, a warming up, because we have 2 days, tomorrow and day after. We can do it 2 ways. Either I start, I give a small talk and then we discuss, or since I have been away for so many, 3 years now, maybe we can also start with a dialogue, or you might be having many questions, I'm sure, especially after the pandemic that came over the world. You didn't get much of it, I think. You were fine in many ways. So, what do you suggest?
Suggest that you will give a talk.
Okay. It's not a talk, it's a satsang, so it's not a speech, you know what I mean. Sat-sanga is a nice word we use, which is different from prasanga. When you say prasanga in Sanskrit, it means a lecture, a talk. When you say satsanga, it is different. It means that you and I are, hey, this is moving. You and I are going to look at something seriously. Not me saying something or you saying something, but we are together involved in working out something. So let me explain the meaning of a satsanga. Sat, the word sat, means the truth, which means that which is, is, always is, as different from things which are here now but gone tomorrow. I hope you get the difference. But if you look at this world, there are no such things. We only have those which are here and gone, maybe next day, next tomorrow, or many years later. We don't see something which is there forever. The nearest thing you see which is there forever is nature. I mean, you have the sea, you have the mountains, these are there, but tiny, puny little beings like us, even animals, we come and then we go. M is here today, but after some years, not there. It's nice, journey is good, but gone. So, when you say Sat, it means you're looking for something which is permanent, which is always there, which is not here today and gone tomorrow. This is Sat. And that which is impermanent is called Asat, that which is not. You know, in Sanskrit, when you add an A and A in front of a word, it becomes opposite. So, if you want to say that which is not lasting, not real, then you add an A to Sat, Asat. It's not. Which means we are not, Sat is that which is not temporary, but that which is always. Now, Plato said something very interesting. But he didn't say one thing, he said 2 things. He said, it's interesting, there are 2 things in this world. Listen to it carefully. Satsang is more listening than thinking about it later. Listening now, okay? So he said something, now listen to this carefully. He said there are two things. One is, with a capital I, is, and is never becoming anything. And the other, the second, is not, but is ever becoming. Get what I'm trying to say. There's something which is, which doesn't become anything. It doesn't need to become anything. It's full. And there's another which is actually not there, but looks like it is there and is always becoming something. Today I am this, I want to become something else. Today I am not a yogi, I want to become a yogi. That's also part of the story. Yeah. Today I don't have education, so I should get education. Becoming. Today I don't look so beautiful, so I have to do something about it. Becoming. I look so beautiful that people are always following me, so I have to change. Becoming. I mean, life is becoming. It never ends, becoming, and then finally we rest. And then there is no becoming, right? And then you put a board saying, R.I.P., rest in peace. Then there is no becoming. Fine. I'm not saying it's bad or good. It's facts, okay? Becoming. R.I.P., does it only mean rest in peace, or does it mean something else? Well, my master said to me, we were walking on near a Christian graveyard, and it said, R.I.P., R.I.P., rest in peace. He said, do you know something? It not only means rest in peace. I said, what does it mean? He said, R.I.P. means rise if possible. You know, maybe that's also true in some way, but generally not. Okay, rise if possible. So there is no becoming there. Even there is becoming, because the body that is there, it gets eaten by maggots and other things in nature. It doesn't go waste. Nothing goes waste, and they thrive. That's also becoming. But there is something which is and is never becoming in all of us, in everything in this nature. There is something which is, but that is not becoming. So when you say sat, you're talking about that is, which is not becoming anything, which is self-sufficient, free, infinite, full. Somewhere the mind knows that it exists, which is why it always takes us on to become full, become more. The single cellular organism divides into 2, then 3, 4. Why? Because it needs to expand. There's an internal feeling that we need to expand. We are saying that there is an element in us and in this world also which is already full, which needs no more to do. At rest, it's full. So, sat is what we can roughly define as. I don't think the truth can be defined, but roughly you can say to some extent that it is something that is always there and not which comes and goes. Now then, what is a sangha? So it's a satsanga. I said we are going to have a satsang. So sangha means a group of people coming together to understand the sat. This is a satsanga. So it's not just me saying, hey, I have found it so. No. I'm saying, can we look into this together and find out if there is a sat, and if it is, where is it and how is it? Is it far away in the caves or in the mountains or somewhere, or is it here? in your office, in your house, in your playground, in your swimming pool? Is it everywhere? If it is, we're trying to figure this out. Therefore, we have come as a group of people, which is the Sangha. So now this is a Sat-sanga. You get what I'm trying to say? So, whenever we are having a Satsang, remember this, that I'm not alone saying something. We're looking into this. You're listening to me, of course, because if I don't say, then how do we get the Sangha? Often it happens that people say that we went to, somebody told me, I won't tell you the names because it's not a good idea. A good German friend of mine, incidentally, whose name was also Hans, he's no, who is not with us, very wonderful man, good man. He's gone. He's also not permanent. So he told me how he went to, I'm not blaming, no offense, to a talk in Frankfurt. And the talk was titled, The Power of Silence. So he said, I went, this is why I'm talking, so it doesn't become that which Hans talked about. So he said, we all went, my friend went and sat down. And the speaker came and sat down. And then I said, then what happened? And then he looked at us, okay? And we looked at him, okay? And then what happened? Then he looked at us. Then we looked at him. I said, Hans. And then he said, then he looked at us. Now, Hans was a good friend of mine, but he was, he's a good man at heart, but he was not quite a disciplined man. He was a fun-loving guy, but you know, there are all kinds of human beings. I have friends, all kinds of friends, even politicians. So, Hans said, so then what happened? Then he said, it went on. He looked at me and I looked at him. And then, then I felt so sleepy, I got up, went on to the road, had a nice sausage and a beer and went home. So if I don't talk, I'm not saying you'll do that, but you know what I mean. We need to communicate. Well, it is true that silence speaks, but that silence we need to touch before we experiment on that. We can't. So this is a satsang. We are sitting together trying to look at something. I think that's the way to do it, and that was the way it was done before many 100 years ago. Now I'm going to tell you a little story. This is from an ancient teaching which has come to us from India. There are ancient teachings that have come to us from all parts of the world. There's no question on that. But there's much more happened in India, because when the rest of the world was looking generally to material advancement, one set of people in India were looking for the mind. They were looking at the study of the mind. So very early they found some things. And I'm sure it was found also in other parts of the world. But when I look at the world spiritual disciplines and traditions, I find that there are many common points. They may be different sometimes, but there are. Anyway, I'm talking from the Indian standpoint, from the Upanishad. You know Upanishad? I'm sure you know Upanishad. Well, many people began to understand the value of the Upanishads only after Max Muller went and translated it into German and then into English. Anyway, so the Upanishads are the most ancient teachings in India. And since they are over 1,000 years old, perhaps in the world, perhaps, I don't know. I'm sure there are other traditions, but okay. So the Upanishads are what was spoken by the wise, by the rishis. indirectly, straightforward, no nonsense. Okay. And they have perhaps the oldest teaching systems even in India, while other things came later, like the Puranas and the Itihasas, the stories, and even the Gita. They all came much later. The Upanishads are the oldest. They are called Upanishads because, I don't know if I explained this once before to you, the word well, let's say that it comes as old as the Vedas. It's difficult to measure when the Vedas came about, but they were codified and kept in a reading form about 1,000 years ago. So they would have existed even before that. In 1,000 years, they were divided into different Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Vedas, and so on. And the Upanishads form the last part of the Vedas. When I say last part, the Vedas have been divided into the hymns which are sung and the ceremonies which are performed, like the fire sacrifice and so on. And then come the Upanishads, which means they deal with the essence of what is there in the Vedas, but they are part of the Vedas. Since they come at the end of the Vedas, when you say Vedanta, it means end of the Vedas. This is where the Upanishads come. Now the Upanishads, to understand, I'm going to tell you a story from the Upanishad, but you should understand what Upanishad is actually. Like it's a dialogue first, it's a satsang. And it clearly states things which you can listen to before you form any conclusion about it. Try to allow it to sink in. You know, if you have a written word, you can take it home, you can read it, you can have your ideas about it. But Upanishad is something that is spoken. It's called Shruti, that which is heard. And when the mind is in its proper state of freedom and without conditioning, the word immediately has an effect. The Shruti immediately has an effect, and you understand what is being said because there is no time to speculate. It's almost the same as saying in the beginning was the word. So, the sound. Let me make you understand the word Upanishad before I tell you this story. Upa. The word upa, ni, and the last word is shad. So you put upa, ni and shad together and you have Upanishad. Now upa is a word which means to move closer. It actually means close, C-L-O-S-E, close, not close, close. You know the greeting in India, which means you and I are close to each other. It's not as if we have closed everything. So, upa means close, to move closer, to go as close as possible to the infinite truth. Upa. And it was also taught in the forest, in the ashrams, in the hermitages in the forest. This looks like a hermitage to me. It's all surrounded by trees and lakes and what, I mean, we have kind of lost it. In India, we need to search in many places to find. But here you have it, these lucky people are living here. So in the forest, in a little place, the teacher lived, a rishi. A rishi means a teacher, a great teacher who has understood the truth. Not all teachers. There's another word for all teachers. And the student went to the teacher and they sat down together close to each other, upa. They sat close to each other, but there was not even the microphone and the speaker then, so you need to sit close to listen to what is being said. It's not only physical proximity, it also means the mind moving closer. You see, some of these truths are not understood from the meaning, but when two minds are moving at the same frequency, gets transferred. No words required. You might go to school, college, you see some teachers, they're talking, they're teaching, but you're wondering when is the class going to end? Yeah, but there are some teachers who come and talk to you and you're listening because they know, bringing the mind together because you're close. So this is what is meant by close, to sit close together and understand a problem which is before us, and also that the minds are close. We are moving in the same direction. Suppose I go to a rishi and say, well, I want to learn, say, economics. And the rishi has no expertise in economics. And if he's trying to teach you that, there is no closeness, because in 10 minutes you'll be closed. You know what I mean? So, this is upa. See how important the word is. The sound upa. And then the sound shad. Shad means to sit down. It's very close to the word sit. Shad. Maybe it has the same root in the Germanic languages. Shad is to sit. Now, not only physically sitting, because I can sit here physically, but my mind may be somewhere else. Then that is not sitting. Here sitting means physically, and also the mind has sat down, is no more traveling, moving here and there, it's listening carefully. So this is shad. And the middle word, Upanishad, ni, is the relationship between the listener, between the teacher and the one who is being taught, where ni means that one is listening from the level, from the understanding that you're going to listen to somebody who probably knows, and I don't know, so I'm trying to find out. It shows the level of the teacher and the student, because if I go and sit saying that I know everything, I will not understand the word. Now this happens many times in India because all of us think that we know everything. Unfortunately, we don't. Okay, please don't worry about it. We don't. But when you go to a place where people say, okay, I don't know, let me figure out, then it is Upanishad. And it's the most difficult word for any human being to say is that I don't know. Everybody knows. Therefore, the attitude of sitting down to learn, saying that I don't know, is the word ni. It indicates if these three things are there together, then the Upanishad is understood. Now there are many Upanishads. There are more than 80, 100 Upanishads. And of these, there are the 21 Yoga Upanishads, which are the most ancient teachings on yoga. Then there are the earliest 11 Upanishads, which are considered the principal Upanishads because they are the earliest and they have been commented upon by all the great teachers. They are the early Upanishads. Out of the principal Upanishads, I'm going to give you a story from one of them. Upanishads are always generally in the form of dialogues. So in this Upanishad, which is one of the principal Upanishads among the 11, this is called the Chandhogya Upanishad. In the Chandhogya Upanishad, the story goes like this. There is a great rishi whose name was Uddalaka Aruni. You don't have to remember the name. his son, the great Rishi's son, goes looking for the truth. His father himself is a great Rishi, but he goes outside to learn the truth. Now this is normal because grown-up children sometimes think the fathers don't know anything, so let's learn from outside. And the father is a good person, he would say, of course, we should go and learn outside, no harm. So they go, the son goes and learns about the truth and comes back to the father. So the father says, so you've come back, good. So have you found the truth? The son says, I think I have. Then the father says, if you think you have, you probably haven't found it, because either you find it or you don't find it, right? So, okay, he said, so let's have an experiment. Have you seen a banyan tree? No? It's very common in India and Burma and Thailand and other. It's a huge tree which, when it grows big, it puts down roots from the branches. It becomes big first, and then those branches, from each branch, many branches, not each, roots come down again unto the earth. And then very soon you have the whole canopy of one tree. It's called the banyan tree. There's also the peepal tree, under which the Buddha sat. But the banyan tree is considered sacred in India because when you have a really big banyan tree, it can cover 1 acre also with one tree. So people don't plant it near the houses because it will take your foundations off soon. So anyway, so the father asks the son, you see the banyan tree there? You can go, and nowadays we don't have to be yogis. You have Google, right? Google God is there, GE capital. Go in and check for banyan tree, you'll see what. Yeah. It is omniscient, knows everything. I'm not always, sometimes wrong, but okay. So the father says to the son, you see there the banyan tree? Yes, Dad, I can see the banyan tree. You go there and look for a seed. So he goes and he looks, and there's a seed, or the seed of the banyan tree. Okay, bring it here. It's okay. Now you peel it, take out the peel from the top. So I have peeled it. So what do you see? Well, I see the kernel. Kernel, Kernel, the inside white stuff which is in. Okay, so I said, peel it. Now what do you see? Well, I see small black seeds inside, black seeds. Okay, take one of those seeds. Yes, I have taken one of those. Can you peel it now? With great difficulty, he peels the little seed. He says, I see nothing. So the father says to the son, it is from this nothing that this huge banyan tree has come. This is an Upanishadic dialogue. It is from this nothing that this huge banyan tree has arrived, has manifested itself. This is how the Upanishad dialogues are conducted. So I think you get a sense of what they're trying to say, that in the essence of it, it may appear as nothing, but it's as the essence of everything. When you say nothing, it doesn't mean nothing, it means no thing. It's not a thing, it's something else from which this entire world has come. So there is a seed which when you open you see almost nothing. When the mind has come to a state when it's not moving anywhere, it's quiet. In the depths of that is that which appears to be nothing. Well, the Buddhists call it shunya, nothing. But we can also call it fullness, purna. It is from this that this entire universe has come. And the search is to find that. It is the sat, the truth. So this is a story from now. We make a lot of attempts to find it in this world, in our relationships, also in our spiritual search. But I think one of the reasons why many times we don't come upon it is because one, it's probably found when there is no effort. Now this might sound strange. The mind that is constantly trying to grab something in the outside world also turns it into the spiritual direction, and it is trying to grab the truth when it cannot. The mind is limited, so it cannot grab the truth. When it becomes quiet, knowing that quietness is the most important thing, then perhaps it's revealed, perhaps. It's good to leave it with a little uncertainty, because perhaps. So now I'm going to tell you another story. This is not from the Upanishad. It's manufactured in my Upanishadic lab. It's not in the Upanishad. You need to imagine a little bit here, a little bit of imagination. Imagine that there is a plastic, transparent, or glass or plastic, whatever, box, long box, which has no lid. It's open. You can see from here inside the box. And this box is divided into two parts with another plastic transparent wall inside, division, which means from this part of the box you can see that part of the box, and there is no roof. Now this part of one part of the box is very beautiful and very nice, and there is a lot of food available there. Well, this part is barren like the desert, completely nothing. Now, in this part which is barren, there are lots of little creatures there, and these creatures are wafer-thin. You know, wafer almost has no thickness. It's thin. The wafer that they put in the mouth on Sundays, it's very thin. It's not thick. So wafer-thin discs. Use your imagination a bit. Wafer-thin discs, colored red, let's say. We are saying it's colored red. And they're alive, moving. They are so thin that they know only two dimensions, which is length and breadth. They have no idea of the dimension called thickness or height or depth. They know only two dimensions. Their movement is not only confined to this way and this way. There is no other movement. Imagine such a creature. And the other side, there are very few green colored creatures. Same thing. They also have no third dimension. They have only two dimensions of movement. But they have already reached there, and they are enjoying the food, the green ones, and they are roaming around, having a swim in the water, and so on. Probably they can't dive, they don't know depth, so story. And then these red little fellows, they are looking through this transparent wall at the other side and thinking how nice. These guys, they are enjoying, and their color has turned green. But how did they manage to go there? Because they know only the roof is open, of course, but they don't know that there is a dimension like this. There is only this and this, right? So now they are wondering, and they are trying hard to go to the other place by going and hitting at the wall in the middle. Tack. but no chance, because you can't. It's divided perfectly. And they're running around, incessantly trying to hit the wall and go on the other side. They're unsuccessful meditators. There's no way you can go on the other side. You need to realize that first. Not you, I mean, the wave. So, but they wish to go there because they see the other guys enjoying and they like the color has turned nice and green. Now the point is, since they are moving, now there is a person like us, a human being, looking at this from the top because there is no roof. And he is wondering, it would be nice if these guys go this side. But how to catch them? They are always moving. They are so incessantly moving that because he knows the third dimension, this guy, like us, he knows it's simple, take it up and put it here. But these guys don't know, they know only this way, right? But he's watching. Now if he can take them, they need to stop moving, right? So one of them, some of them, understanding that this is no way, you can only break your nose hitting on that. You can't go through the dimension that we know of. Decide to go to one corner and sit down and meditate to figure out how to get out. And then this man lifts it, puts it on his. They said, we have meditated and we are here. So they have become green and they're enjoying. The others are wondering, now what happened? How did this guy go there? Because they have no idea of this dimension. How did this guy? It can't be, it's impossible, but we can see it. So there is compassion and there is this great beings who are always fond of lifting us and putting us on. But we won't stop moving, you see. We are attempting, but this is not the way. For this particular thing, there is no way. For other things, yes. But not for this. So, what's the moral of, what is the meaning of the story? That you're welcome to come to the other side. There are beings who are compassionate, who would want to help you, but you need to stop moving. And you need to also stop saying that I can do it. When I say, well, maybe I can't, then you're gone there. That's right. So, this is the other dimension. Now, we have half an hour more.
Yeah, more.
40 minutes.
My watch says half an hour. Maybe it's an Indian watch. Huh?
Yeah, time until 15 past, so.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. So, what did I say? Yeah. So, I want to, now what if someone has touched it? What if someone has really touched that which is beyond the wall? Will all people who touch that feel the same? I would say generally yes, but maybe also little differently based on your background, your karmas, if you want to call it, and so on. So now we go back to another story, which I told you last time, if you remember. This story is from the Sufi mystic called Rumi. I don't know if many people have heard of Rumi. He was a great mystic in Turkey. His most famous writings are the poems called the Masnavi. They're couplets. Now Rumi has a beautiful story. Well, he got the source of his story is of course the Jains in India. There is an ancient tradition in India On one hand, there is the Hindu tradition, and there is also the Jain tradition, and there is the Buddhist tradition, and of course there is the Charvaka tradition, which means the atheists. There are 4 great traditions in India. So out of these, the Jains are the people who consider that the greatest virtue is to be non-violent. Gandhi picked up the ideas from the Jains. His teacher was a Jain. They say ahimsa paramo dharma. The greatest attribute, the greatest dharma, and the greatest practice is to be non-violent. And it's not a moral theory for them, they practice it in daily life. Now, they actually don't believe in a creator God, but they believe in the immortality of the soul, and they say there are an innumerable, infinite number of souls who are bound. And according to them, nirvana or freedom is to free the souls from bondage and make them free. And they rely a lot on self-effort. They're like the red fellows who want to push into that. Now, in the Jain tradition, there's a story which Rumi copied and used it for his teachings. And the story is about, I said this last time if you remember, about 3 blind men who go and try to find out what an elephant is all about. So there's an elephant there, and there are these 3 blind men who have gone to see the elephant. I mean, they're blind, so they can't see it, but find out what an elephant. So one of them touches the foot of the elephant, and he says an elephant is like a tree trunk. It's big and it's rough. And we have also been warned that if you go too close and if it lands on you, that's your end. You will be dead. Okay, so this is the elephant, like a tree trunk. The second blind man touches the trunk of the elephant and says, well, an elephant is like a big rubber hose. It keeps moving all the time, and it making noises like pss, pss sound. It keeps moving. And we have also been warned that if you do go too close, it might take us up and throw us down, bash us. So be careful and so on. Now the third blind man touches the tail of the elephant. And he says an elephant is like a bathroom brush. I mean, it's straight and it has bristles on it, and it also keeps moving, and the bristles are pretty painful if they hit you on the face. So this is the definition of an elephant. Now a big fight happens because each person says this is the definition of an elephant. One man says it is this, the other man says it's a tree trunk. So first verbal fight and then fisticuffs. And before anybody is murdered, there appears a man who is not blind. But the reality is that we may have eyes, but we are blind in many ways. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So this man is someone who can see. So he comes and there's a big fight going on. Before they murder each other, he separates them. He said, wait a minute, let's discuss this matter. What's going on? Well, this guy says the elephant is a trunk. Okay. And the other guy says, no, an elephant is a rubber hose. And the third guy, well, an elephant is a bathroom brush, like our. So the guy says, I'm right, you're right. The other guy says, no, he's wrong, I'm right. So this man says, listen, you are blind, you don't see, you found only by touching one end of the elephant. I can see, and I see that the elephant is much bigger than what you think, much more than what you think. You're right, he's right, but you're also wrong in some way. because in the absolute sense of the term you are wrong, because the elephant is much more than what you can touch. Now, what we are trying to say, the infinite, if there is an infinite being, there is an infinite, supreme, all-pervading reality, if there is. Since it is infinite, it's hard for any individual to define it, because we don't see. We are not, we haven't reached the understanding that there is another dimension. We are only moving this way, like the wafers. So we don't see. Even if you see it, since each one of us is made up in different ways, you forget about past birth and all that. You don't even have to think of that. All of us are the results of 70 million years of genetic evolution. So we have to be different, right? Biologically also. And so, since we are different, we may see the same thing differently. The essence would be the same, but our idea of it would be different. So even if someone has touched that, no one till this date has described the whole. We can only describe what we know. Therefore, there is bound to be some minor differences, but the major thing is that it is absolute calmness, it's absolute quietude, and it is infinite and all-pervading. These are some points which no one can differ on, but the way it is and how it is can be different according to our backgrounds, which is why there are so many teachers talking about the same thing in different ways. Sometimes one gets confused. And also the path, how to move there, there may be different ideas of how to get there. There may be some who trudge along slowly. There may be some who find it soon. Now, it depends on various factors. So, patience is very important in this matter. Okay. Now, one more story and we split. This is about, I'm sure many of us nowadays are familiar with the Buddhist teachings, thanks to the Dalai Lama and so on. I don't know much about Finland, but in the West many people know this. I don't know if you know this, but the first entry of Buddhism into Tibet, first it was from the Indian source, then after that, what is today considered to be the Vajrayana, Mahayana teachings and so on, they came with a great yogi whose name was Padmasambhava. Now, Padmasambhava came from a small province called Udyan, which was then part of Afghanistan. But the Indian history says that all that was one time part of the continent, subcontinent. And Buddhism developed well in those places. In fact, nobody knows how the Buddha actually looked like. Because for 100 years after Buddha's death, going away, there were no images of Buddha. Because he had said, I want no images of myself. So when they wanted to have Buddha, they used to have a stupa. You know what a stupa is? A small piece of stick with an umbrella on that to show that the Buddha is sitting there. For 100 years after Buddha's life, there were no images of the Buddha. It was after that that the images came. So the beautiful Buddha that you see is a result of Greco-Afghan art, because Alexander had conquered Afghanistan. You know the famous Bhamini Buddhas which were broken down by Vandals, which is such a stupid thing to do. So anyway, so Buddhas that you see now are Greco-Indian art, Greco-Afghan art, because Alexander conquered Afghanistan and many Greeks took to Buddhism. And therefore, those beautiful images, even the cloth that Buddha wears is like a toga, right? So we really don't know how he looked. Anyway, so the first entry of Buddhism into Tibet was through Padmasambhava, who went from Udyan. Padmasambhava was a great teacher. He knew Tantra, he knew Upanishads, he knew Buddhist, all these things, including the Prajna Paramita, which is a complete text on consciousness written by Nagarjuna. But the original teaching of the Buddhists, there was also the teaching called the Dzogchen. Now, the Dzogchen is one of the old teachings of Buddhism, much before Lamaism and everything came about. And if you want to write it in English, you have to add a D to the Z. So, Dzogchen. So there is this story, after which I'll stop, about a Dzogchen teacher and a Dzogchen student walking along. So the student says to the teacher, "I've been with you for 15 years, but I haven't got the experience of Dzogchen." Like in Zen, they say Satori. In India, they say Nirvana. So in this particular school, it's called Dzogchen, the experience. It's supposed to be immediate, straight, and there, to the point. So I said, 15 years I've been with you, Master, but I haven't had this experience of fullness, the infinity of Dzogchen. Why? Master doesn't say anything, walks along. Now, Dzogchen masters are also famous for being eccentric. So the student stops after a while because he might get hit or slapped. So he says, "Okay." And then the master says, "Can you see that hill up there?" "Yes, Master, I can see the hill." "Okay." "Do you see a big sack out there?" "A sack, S-A-C-K, a bag." "Okay, I can see it." "And this side, can you see a lot of stones?" "Yes, Master, I can see the stones." "Okay, now your first job. You want Dzogchen, right? Fill up this bag with the stones." And student is wondering, what Dzogchen is this now? This is labor. So anyway, he fills the bag with all the stones till the bag is full. Say, "Tie it." "Okay, Master, tied it." "Now what?" "Put it on your back." "Okay, back. He said, "This is Dzogchen." "Yeah, you put it on your back." "Okay. Now climb up the hill." This guy trudging along with this heavy load of rocks on his back, great difficulty, and halfway is thinking, maybe the master wants to kill me because I asked this question. Anyway, he walks up and goes to the top of the hill. And when he reaches the top, the master has already come there, on his horse, of course. He gets off the horse, and this guy is saying, "Now what do I do?" Because he's on the verge of death. He's a bit like, he said, "You see the tree out there?" "Yes." "Now throw this down and go and sit under the tree." So this guy says, at last, throws the sack, goes and sits under the tree and says, "Ah." Then he says, "I got it, Master." You know what I mean? So this burden that we carry of so many things, including our thoughts, including our efforts to find all these burdens, and they're emptied. Then you do nothing, go and sit under a tree and you got it. You need not sit under a tree. Maybe sit in your own drawing room, look out of the window. So these burdens have to be thrown away. Even the burden of too much speculation. It doesn't carry us very far. Having sat together now and listened to all this, do you have any questions? If you have anything to discuss, anything to ask, it need not be a question, it could be a discussion, could be anything.
Why the teaching says that you should say mantra 108 times? Does it have a greater meaning?
The number, 108 number.
108 times that you have to say the mantra
Yeah.
to repeat.
Right. Now, this is generally said to keep a count that you are not saying, oh, I have chanted enough, so I can go to sleep now. So a number has been fixed. Now, 108 is an ancient sacred number, which means if you chant 108 times, there is sufficient amount of time to chant. And plus, 108 is a multiple of 9. So, 9 is a number of infinity. 9 is a number of energy which can neither be created nor destroyed. I tell you why. 9 is the number among all other numerals which represents the entire energy which, like Einstein said, can neither be created nor destroyed, remains constant forever. So, why? Because numerically, Pythagoras demonstrated that any multiple of 9, if you add together, will give you 9 arithmetically, mathematically. You try any multiple of 9. Multiply 9 by any number you want. When you add them together, it would be 108. Is how many times 9? 12 times, right? Add 108 together, what number do you get? 1 plus 8, 9. 9. So, any multiple of 9 gives you back 9. So, 9 and 108 is a convenient time span using the number 9. So, they gave 108. If they said 9, which is the actual number, people would chant only 9 times and say done. So, they made a good multiple of 9 and made it 108. I mean, that's about it. It's a symbolic number, but you must remember that it is a multiple of 9 and therefore, it keeps your energy infinite. It can neither be created nor be destroyed. It's constantly there. So, that is the reason why we have 108.
Thank you.
You got it, right?
I would have an additional question out of this answer. We have learned that number 8 is actually the mark for eternity.
Yeah. Number 8 is a symbolic mark for infinity, while number 9 is a mathematical symbol of infinity.
Thank you.
Yeah. That is the shape.
Yes.
It's the form. And here is the number.
Yes, 9 times 9, 81. 8 plus 1, 9. Got it.
You cannot do anything about it.
Thank you.
Hello. What's the difference when self-realized being as you and not self-realized being as me say this body? When I say this body and my mind and my thoughts, and you say your body and your thoughts, what's the difference when you say your body? Did you get it?
I got it, I think, roughly. I'm not sure, but I think I got it. You're saying that I also say my body, my mind, and so on. You also say my body, my mind. So you're saying if I am self-realized, then is there a difference when I say it? How do I feel about it? And you saying it, if you are not self-realized, I don't know. Okay? So it's like this. When I say my body, I am my mind and so on. I am using the normal conventions which people can understand. I really don't feel it that way. I have to say it because that's the only way I can communicate with people. I cannot say, oh, it doesn't exist. So there is that difference that when I say my body and my mind, I'm not talking about some small finite existence. I'm talking from a different viewpoint. But since my instruments of communication are only my tongue, my mouth, my lips, my vocal cords, this is the only way I can express it. Saying is my body, is my mind. Actually, it doesn't belong to anybody, really. So this, when you understand, you still have to communicate with the world only this way. There is no other way you can communicate with them. Otherwise, it will become the power of silence. And somebody in front might imagine that they have realized because I am silent and go home. Right? So I need to speak. I need to tell them. So this is the only way. But my attitude is completely different. And therefore, after teaching for 2 days or 3 days, I really, at the end of it, don't feel that I'm teaching. There is an inner thing that works through this body and mind. I'm not really concerned. So tomorrow if somebody says, oh, that was wonderful, I don't feel any acceleration about that. And if somebody says, oh, that was stupid, I don't feel hurt. Because, I'm not doing anything. Although it appears that I'm doing something. But that's the only way you can do it. Which means I'm acting, but deep down there is no action. There is inaction. Outwardly there is, when you touch that you'll understand. I cannot say more than that.
Thank you very much.
I hope roughly I could. These are things which we can only do to a certain extent using words.
Yeah, but it's still so wonderful to hear
Thank
when
you.
you explain.
Namaste. Maybe touching a little bit the same topic than Pirjo. When we Reds are running around and hitting our nose into the wall and doing mundane things, the normal human things, does those events and happenings have value as themselves, or are they just obstacles that we realize that this hurts too much and we have to sit down? If you could explain this a little bit more. Thank you.
Both actually. Two things. They have a value as far as the relative world is concerned. The things that we do. We are not, even if you have touched the truth, you still live in this world. So there is some meaning to what you do. But before you touch that, it's quite normal that you're doing things in this world. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Other is, as you said, it's when we function in this world and get sometimes disappointed and hurt and pained, hitting your head on the wall and so on. I mean, it was just an expression. Then one begins to wonder if there's something beyond this. So it still has a function, you know. When I'm hurt, then I want to figure, why am I constantly getting hurt? Is there a way out of this movement? So that you wouldn't have understood that until you got hurt. So even that moving has its own relevance and value, because it teaches you that there are other ways of doing things. If you didn't do it, you would never learn that. It has a value. So any pain, any sorrow, any obstacle which kind of makes you stop in your tracks in this world, consider that also as a blessing, because it teaches you, where to move. That this is not the way, I need to shift gear. Either I am going too fast or I am going, nowadays it is automatic, depends on your foot. But you need to understand this only through action. There is no other way. It's a
I can see that. Yes.
Yeah. There is a misunderstanding normally when you look at some of the teachings from, let's say, from Jesus, for instance. Now there is this beautiful Sermon on the Mount. If you want to get the essence of, don't forget about the church, I'm talking about Jesus, okay? We're talking about a person, let's say Jesus, man walking in the streets of Galilee, Jerusalem, the streets of Jerusalem, with no place to sleep, a wanderer, eating what food is available. In India, such a person would be called a parivrajak, a great yogi. Now, among all the teachings, I think they tried a lot to change, but some things have remained, and which is the Sermon on the Mount, which is very beautiful. This man climbs up the hill and stands there and speaks to the crowd, and there is no special VIP seats for anybody. Everybody is there. And he speaks, and some of the things, like connected to what you said now, it has been always misunderstood. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. That comfort doesn't mean, according to me, physical comfort. It means when you have all the difficulties in the world and you are actually mourning, suffering for it, then your comfort will come spiritually. Now, unless you live in this world and act, how will you even know that there is pain here? Right? So, and there is another sentence which has never been explained. I went to a Christian school, I went to a Christian Loyola college, the Jesuits, and I've asked this question numerous times. What did this man mean when he said, "Therefore, if thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light"? What did he mean by this? This is from St. Mark, St. John, St. Luke. Look at all the Gospels. They say maybe, I said, does it mean that you should go blind in one eye? One eye, your whole body shall be full of light. No, nobody knows. We think that he was a great yogi who understood the significance of the single eye of wisdom, which we meditate upon here, and which we knock when we do Kriya regularly. Knock and it shall be opened unto thee. Oh. So we think he's talking about a different thing altogether, not this eye. That single eye is what we need to open, and that's the eye which means it's not a physical eye.
I had this question weeks before this as we met, and you already nearly answered it. But I still want to come back to that. And my basic question is, what is meditation? You nearly answered it from different points of view, but now I'm just in my mind. My mind is saying that it's just a tool. When the mind is quiet, it can touch the immortal. You said the big creation there behind.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Clarification. When the mind is quiet, the mind, being limited, cannot touch that. Okay, but when the mind is quiet, when it is quiet, and so all practices are done basically for that, to quieten the mind and make it less distracted. And what happens is, when the mind is very quiet, then as an individual it ceases to exist. Then there is only the infinite. Let's put it this way. It's a better way of putting it. It's not that the mind can reach out there. The mind is absolutely calm and quiet, and there are no ripples on it. Then it almost ceases to exist except to recognize this, what is happening. Nothing else remains. Then the infinite is glimpsed. Then there is no single mind, there is only that infinite mind. Yeah, but if you want to translate it or tell somebody about it, then you need to again get this little mind out there to explain, because otherwise it's not possible. You're right. So it's a tool in the sense that the mind is usually distracted. It's always moving around here and there. 1 minute here, 1 minute there. It's like a monkey climbing the tree. But when you do ways and means, different forms of meditation, really the greatest of meditation is when there is nothing happening. In fact, I would even question the thought, I am going to meditate. Because when I am going to meditate, meditation cannot happen. Because I am there, I am trying to meditate. You know it. But all these are used as tools so that the mind becomes subtler and subtler and subtler, finer and finer, until one day it's totally settled down. In that settling down is the understanding. Now, partly the distraction is also because we are not serious about it, we are not so interested in it. We may be a little bit, when you are really serious, there is no distraction. Look, suppose you love music, right? Suppose. Now I say, I want to listen. Is there a distraction? No, because I am fully there, I am fully involved. Was there a distraction? When there is a distraction, that means I am not fully involved in this, which means I still haven't developed the love for it. When it happens, people say, why I am trying to meditate, I cannot meditate. I said, when you are trying, you are not meditating. I don't know if you can understand what I am trying to say. In Sanskrit, there are two words in the yoga science of yoga. Patanjali describes dharana and dhyana. Now, dharana is all the tools of meditation that you use, which are essential for the mind which is running around to bring to one point. I agree with that. After that, why has he differentiated dharana from dhyana? Because dhyana is when your mind has now rested and is not attempting anything, is quiet, then dhyana comes automatically. Dhyana is not a state to be attained. It's a state when perfect dharana is attained. If you try to get to perfect dharana, and then you already have the dhyana moving. And samadhi, the state of illumination which is described in the Yoga Sutras, it's not something that comes through self-effort, it is complete effortlessness. And it's not one of the points to in the Ashtanga Yoga, it's the culmination, the last culmination, when the mind is so still that the mind is no more your mind or my mind. There's only the mind in abstract. And that abstract mind is no different from the infinite consciousness, because it has lost its individual traits. And believe me, don't look puzzled, you can do it. It's not that only I can do it. Don't look, is this possible? Well, it is possible. It's so simple that people don't think that it's so complicated and don't go into it. Actually, it's the simplest thing. Everybody should know. I mean, you don't have to change your robes or your hairstyle. But I think goodness matters. Because goodness has no logic. It has no logic. You don't give something because you always expect something in return. That is not goodness. Goodness is an automatic feeling from inside to give, to help, to love. The moment it becomes a calculation, it's gone. Even ordinary love, what we call worldly love, is better than worldly calculation. Seriously. There are two young people and they are standing somewhere under the tree, or I don't know where they stand these days, and and they are looking at each other. Nobody knows what is happening. They are doing nothing. They are just looking at each other. You ask them, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. Something is happening. What's happening? No definition. So you can imagine that. Much more than that. Does logic work? No, it doesn't work at that point. If two young people are in love, is there any logic? Tell me. No. You do anything for that other person. Anything. This is ordinary. And then when it grows, imagine how it is at that point. You don't expect anything in return. You just want to love.
Hello.
Right.
You have mentioned a couple of times about the fastest path being cutting the ego into two. Could you talk about this in more detail?
I didn't say it is the fastest thing, okay? I only said that it is the toughest thing to do. When I say, no, because somebody asked me, is there a shortcut? Somebody asked me, is there a shortcut? And I said, I wish I could speak your language. Anyway, somebody said, is there a shortcut? So I said that the shortest cut is to cut the ego into two. Not that it is a shortcut to cut. This is not short, it's very difficult. Shall I tell you a story? A very interesting story. It is this ego that creates the most problems. You know, if you can set it aside a bit, things are beautiful, very beautiful. Even in the house, if you live your life saying that I am not always right, things happen properly. The problem is when I am always right. So, either side. I'm a married man myself. Yeah. And the best medicine for ego is the wife and the husband, other way around. Yeah. So anyway, I'll tell you a story because you know what, for your information, I'm now working on a new Indian Harry Potter. Okay. So stories it sometimes speak better than thesis or PhD thesis. There was a man, this was told to me by a holy man, by a monk. There was a man who who was a great sculptor. You know what is a sculptor? One who makes images, beautiful sculptor. So he was called by a priest in the temple to make a image of the deity inside the temple. He wanted to put a new deity inside the temple, so he called him and he said, "Can you make it for me?" He said, "Yes." Then he said, "Hey, wait a minute, don't run away. Show me your hand." So I don't believe it, but there are people who believe. It's a story. So he looked at his hand and he said, "Hey, you're going to die in 3 months." He said, "What? So what do you do?" He said, "No, you're going to die in 3 months." He said, "Well, you are the priest of this temple and you're supposed to have first communication with your deity, and you're saying I'm going to die. Find out what I should do to escape from death. There must be something. You are the priest, you know it." The priest said, "Yeah, there is one way you can escape." "How?" "You are such a good sculptor, so you make a beautiful 2 images of yourself, just like you. 2 images. And in India, there is this story, the tradition, that the god of death sends his assistants to bring the soul when you die. I mean, this is a story. So they come riding on buffaloes, I don't know why, and then they wait for somebody to, and then they take the soul to the other world. This is the Indian custom, I mean, not custom, the story. So he said, "So you make 2 images just like yourself. You're such a good sculptor. They will look exactly like you. So you stand in the middle, the other fellow this side and the other fellow this side, 3, and you are so good that these fellows who come from the god of death, they ride on buffaloes, they're kind of idiots. So they won't be able to make out who is real and who is unreal." Yeah. And then when the time of death is over, you can't come back. It's over. That muhurta it's called. Then nobody can take your soul. So they will go back. Said, okay. He went to his workshop, 3 months, he made 2 images exactly like himself and stood in the center at the exact time. They came on their buffaloes. He looked around. They said, "Which is the original? Who to take? Where do I take the soul from? Because there are 3 of them. Can't make out." Then the time was past and they went back. They went back to the Lord of Death and said, "Hey, boss, no chance. This guy, he made images of himself and they look so real. We didn't know which is real and which is art." So we came back. So the boss said, "Well, I know you're idiots, but next time when you go," because he's going to again, his death time is coming 3 months after. "When you go next time, I will give you a secret mantra in your ears. You take it and then you can get him." He said, "Okay." So he went back to the temple and the priest said, 3 more months, you're again going to die. He said, "What do you do?" "Do the same thing." "Yeah," he said, "good idea. Last time I escaped." So he went, they came and he stood. Now, just before leaving, the Lord of Death whispered into their ears a mantra, a secret. So they came fully armed with the secret. The secret was very simple. He said, "Now you praise them. You praise this guy. That's all you need to do." So these fellows came and they said, "Oh my God, what a beautiful sculpture. It looks so original. We can't make out which is original and which is the artificial. Oh, even the skin looks so nice. Even the breath seems to be coming." For 2 minutes, this guy held himself. Then he said, "You know what, I made it." They said, come, now we know who is there." Come on, so this is the problem. It's not easy. It's not a shortcut. And it pops up from unknown places at unknown times. You never know when it comes up, you know. You think, I've settled this fellow, and then suddenly it comes up.